Everyone dies in Final Fantasy VII, Pez. Have you lost your mind, sir? What's good, guys? I don't think I have, but I'm bringing you a theory today for the ending of Final Fantasy VII and for the remake, and this is a huge one. This has blown my mind, and make sure you stay until the end of the video. I know there is such a habit of people making comments in the comment section, conclusions, before they've even watched the video, but trust me, if you stay to the end, I'm going to show to you guys why every single person dying in FF7 is actually the most likely option. Ignore this mess. I don't focus on the curious doge. No, I have just noticed how Red 13 like you are. You Red 13? Last of your kind? Or maybe not. I don't know. So I'm going to dive straight into it, and I'm going to try not to take too long. Yeah. I'll go quickly before I start, show you guys the ending, just to refresh your memories on exactly how FF7, the ending, did finish off. It was super ambiguous and very, very curious. Take a look. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine right now how good that ending is going to look in the visual remade glory. But yeah, Meteor's coming down, Holy can't fight it, the live stream comes to counter it, and flash. Suddenly the game is over, we see Aerith's face, and then it cuts. Of course, there is the ending with Nanaki, which I will cover towards the end. But the question is, after that flash, after that encounter with Meteor coming down, did all of humanity die off then and there? Another interesting part that kind of goes hand in hand with this theory, that the materia that Aerith is using, I always thought this was holy. So of course it's called the white materia, and although it's white materia, a lot of us made the assumption that this was holy. But upon revisiting this entire ending, another part that was very, very strange is just before Cloud goes in to fight Sephiroth, we see a very strange piece of orb materia flash up on the screen for a very brief moment, and it is this. What is it? Why is it there during such a significant moment? And what exactly were the creators of FF7 getting at with this? Because this is a different color to the white materia that Aerith has in her hair. It's yellow. And of course we're at the Northern Crater at this part, and this kind of blew my whole perception of it, because there's been a lot of theorizing online by fans of what exactly it was, and I'm going to settle on a few options. One, I'm going to say, could it still be the same piece of materia from Aerith's hair? It's just traveled through the live stream to the Northern Crater area, and it's changed color because it's in a different phase of its holy summoning. Perhaps. There's a lot to back it up. Sephiroth, when he falls into the live stream, his body travels to the Northern Crater. Even when Cloud falls into the live stream, his body then appears washed up in a different part of the globe. So things that fall into the live stream definitely can traverse to other locations. So while Cloud and the whole crew thought it was all game over because the materia was lost at the bottom of the lake in the ancient city where Aerith dies, it could potentially have moved on. Of course, what Bugenhagen says about the white materia and its purpose, which leads me into what else it might be, is maybe it isn't holy. Maybe this piece of materia that Aerith has been carrying around, that Ephalna gave to her daughter, is more just a guiding piece of materia, as well as a summoning initiation piece. So it was always kind of curious. I mean, she has a communication with the planet, and she has a very strong instinct. That might have been the thing that led Aerith to the ancient city after she departed from Cloud and the crew. But maybe it was this piece of materia that was guiding her. Kind of like an ancient city GPS system that also allowed her to, again, initiate the summoning. And Bugenhagen does kind of back this up. He says that when the white materia has been given a prayer and a soul reaches the planet to bring forth holy, that it would turn a pale green. And of course they then get really ecstatic when they see that it is pale green. They go and review the orb that's in the ancient city, and they see it at the bottom of the lake there glowing. So Aerith's prayer reached the planet. Therefore, these two pieces of materia, although they may be interconnected, they may be separate phases and not exactly holy. And I kind of think this is important, because then if we do go to the ending just before that piece of materia appears on the screen, we actually do see from Cloud, when he's getting pulled around by Sephiroth and the rest of the crew, He says, it's there, holy, it's shining, Aerith's prayer. Like, they make a big deal of it that Cloud, specifically out of everyone, has really just understood what holy is. He himself says he finally understands. While this might seem like a trivial point, Squaresoft, I think it's significant because they really did emphasize that when the white materia gets the prayer given to the planet as Soul connects, it's green, it's pale green. They emphasize it over and over again. And then when we see this yellow piece of materia, there's white kind of specks around it rather than the traditional green. I think the differentiation between white and green is pretty visually significant considering the ending. You know, the live stream is green and the holy is white. But why would they go yellow with the orb? Now, I've been wondering, and all I can think is in FF7, yellow is typically associated with command materia. So did they pick yellow to kind of indicate that maybe the command of holy has been initiated, or the command of the live stream? Like maybe Aerith has command of the live stream now. That's why it comes to the aid at the end, and that's why right at the very end we see Aerith's face pop up. Considering that's the last thing we see before the end of the credits, this too I feel is pretty significant. But what's this got to do with all of the characters dying? Well, one of the really curious things about holy specifically is, and Bugenhagen says this many times, is that holy isn't there to save humanity. Holy is there to save the planet. It is a planetary defense. Its primary goal is to sustain all life no matter what the cost. And even Bugenhagen says that when holy gets summoned, because he was kind of apprehensive about the entire act, would it necessarily keep humanity in the picture afterwards? And this was something that I think a lot of fans overlook, is Bugenhagen says that, no, humanity, are they good or evil? That holy would only keep around what is good. And Bugenhagen is not sure which of those categories humanity falls into. Even Cloud, after hearing this, says it's the end. So quite a few hints that after the event goes down, humanity might not be around for much longer. But moving on now to the end. So after Cloud has finally beaten Sephiroth, and he reached up for the hand, and it's Aerith's hand, and then it transitions to Tifa, and Tifa tries to help, and then Cloud manages to do a one-arm pull-up with her. How the hell he did that, I do not know. One really curious line that he then says is that he finally understands, and he said this before, that he could go and meet Aerith in the promised land. He said that before this scene, and then even during it, he says, let's go see Aerith. And Tifa makes this kind of weird, like, sad expression, but then smiles and says, yes, let's go see her. This sounds very we're gon' die. Now, you could argue, well, yeah, Pez, they think that they're trapped in the northern crater, and it's only by the luck of Lady Luck coming down, that kinky Sid Highwind ship, that they then get propelled out, and Sid then manages to pull the lever, the right lever, and no, they shoot off, and wow, I forgot that the Highwind had this capability. Highwind type F, baby, give it to me. Now you might ask, why would they have this very narrow escape? Why would Square show it just to then kill the crew off? And that's a pretty valid point. But maybe it does go deeper, and the reason why Cloud said about going to meet Aerith is because, again, tying in with what he said he finally understood about Holy, was what he understood that humanity was gone, and that he had come to peace with knowing what Aerith knew, and perhaps that was that while humanity would have a place in the live stream, and that her prayer and that her intention, Aerith's that is, was to bring humanity back into the live stream to perhaps have them be reborn in a different way, reborn in a different time after the planet can heal, and maybe humanity can come back, but also maybe he'd just come to accept that the planet was more important than humanity. So I know it sounds crazy, but this is going to be the really supporting comments that is just going to make this all the more likely. Now, before I get into that last bit, I want to go through some common rebuttals that is going to happen here. The obvious one is, well, clearly not Pez. There's Advent Children. There's Dirge of Cerberus. These happen after the game, so clearly humanity don't die. Well, I would say that at the time FF7 was made, there was no intention to have those after events, games, you know, only after FF7 became huge and Square realized there was some to be made. That's when the decision was made to have those. And I also would say with the remake specifically, that really doesn't count, because again, Nomura has said this is going to blow the compilation out of the water. None of it is now going to be canonical, according to Tetsuya Nomura. And I think regardless, the remake is going to handle the ending differently, because it was so ambiguous. I mean, maybe not, maybe they will just leave it as ambiguous, because a part of me thinks that the reason why FF7 ended this way was to make the player think. It was an open-ended, you make the conclusion, what do you think happened? And that perhaps there are no wrong or right answers here. But I definitely foresee some changes, or actually I want some changes for the ending, because I love Final Fantasy VII. It is one of my favourite Final Fantasy games. But I personally also think it has one of the weakest endings. And maybe it's because I didn't think deeply enough about it or draw any conclusions I liked. But I don't know, it seemed like it was just wrapped up really quickly and like in a rushed way, and it didn't feel as satisfying as what some FF endings have. And I just think that, you know, if this is going to be so many games, if the ending was kept pretty much the same, I don't know. To me, I don't think it would be that satisfying an ending to have, or that they can just simply, you know, follow the framework of it, but just go a little bit further, like end it off on a bigger bang. And perhaps they do, and perhaps they do make it less ambiguous, and they lean into an actual more conclusive ending of what happened to shock and surprise us. Now, the other rebuttal that I know is going to come up is, well, obviously they didn't all die, because Nanaki's still alive. The ending after the credits is Nanaki there with his 2 kids. He's loping along, and he goes up, and there he sees Midgar, all overgrown, taken back by nature, and no people in sight. Now, I always used to draw the conclusion that this was either saying that humanity had moved away from Midgar. You know, this was, you know, Midgar, which was the main event of what had been the criminalizing city against the planet. This was where Mako was being extracted and killing the Life's planet. And this was just a symbol to show humanity has done away with that. And that while they're not, you know, here in this city, they are still alive. You know, in Advent Children they moved to Edge, so maybe they moved somewhere different. I always thought that perhaps space travel had taken off, and, you know, Sid Highwind actually gets into space, so maybe humanity left the planet and went somewhere else. But if we go along this everybody dies theory, could it also be the case that the reason why Nanaki, because there's a few conclusions. Bugenhagen said that it was humans who would potentially not survive wholly. That they would be judged for good or bad, and which way the scale would land, he didn't know. And maybe this is what it's showing, because one of the curious things before this scene is when they're watching Meteor come down, you'll notice that all the other characters talk about Midgar, about the people in Midgar. Like, their main concern is the other humans. And while, you know, especially Barrett and Tifa, you know, they do have an agenda to save the planet. Like, they are planetarians. Is that the planet version of humanitarians? Although they are, their main concern was about the people in Midgar. But it was specifically Nanaki in this scene who said that it was too late for Midgar. It was too late for the people, and that the priority was for the planet to be saved. Now that makes me think, did they put that in there to show that Nanaki cares about the planet, whereas humans are still stuck in that locking point of only caring about themselves, about their own species, and that, you know, the care of the planet has not risen above the care for their own selfishness, hence why the reason the planet is dying. And so perhaps when Holy's judgment came, it wiped out all of humanity, but not Nanaki, because he is an animal of nature. He's connected to nature, and he still has that care. The other conclusion I had is, with this theory, is there's a lot of talk about the promised land. And while Cloud, you know, often says towards the end that he can go meet Aerith there, that he thinks he can meet her there, and that this promised land is like one place that all can go, other parts of the game have said that the promised land is actually something more specific to each person. Everyone's promised land is different. I guess kind of like a personal heaven, you know, a personal nirvana based on the individual. and that it'd be different for everyone else. And this makes me think that maybe this scene that we're seeing here is Nanaki's promised land. And that Nanaki's promised land is one where there is no defiling of humans on the planet, that they're not in existence. And maybe that would even explain why there's kids. Because think about Nanaki's promised land, it would be to no longer be the last of his kind, which was emphasized throughout the game. Now, I know that the reason why I explained later he had kids is because of Dene. Now, Dene was introduced in Before Crisis, again, after the original, but she could so easily have just been a plot retcon after they decided to continue the universe and expand it. It was often asked after, how the hell did Red have kids? And some people said maybe they genetically cloned some said that no, Bugenhagen said he was the last of his tribe, so does that mean there were other tribes? You know, and Red wasn't necessarily the last of his kind, or maybe is this case that Red is now living out his promised land with kids and a planet that has gone back to the wilderness. I don't know, it's deep. This theory that everyone died in FF7 the original, I think it's something they could consider for the remake. Like, this could be a theory for the remake on how they do the ending, and maybe they do go that bold to shock and surprise us, because what gives all of this a huge amount of credence. So drop in the bomb on you. When I found this, I could not believe it. So in an interview post FF7 original, Kitase was asked, what does Final Fantasy VII mean to you? And Yoshinori Kitase's response was, FF7 was the first Final Fantasy for the PS1, and it was also the first 3D game in the series. So it determined the new direction that the franchise would take after the 16-bit Super Nintendo era. It is by far the most memorable, important title for me, and when I had the chance to expand any of the past games, I immediately chose Final Fantasy VII for the project. The ending of FF7 seemed to me to open up so many possibilities with its characters, more so than any other games. So there's a bit of the logic behind how Kitase opened the compilation, admitting that it's open-ended, and that's how we have all of those after, you know, Dirge of Cerberus and whatnot. But then the interviewer asks, at the very end of FF7 we see the epilogue to the whole story, that it takes place 500 years later. So really, you still have another 497 years worth of games and movies to fill in, don't you? Now here's the big response. Yoshinori Kitase laughs. Maybe I will try to do that. In a way, I consider that epilogue to be the true happy ending of FF7. Well, it's a happy ending even though all the human beings are destroyed. What? Oh, what? Holy hell! When I saw this, I nearly choked on a glass of sweet OJ I was drinking at the time. Even though all the human beings are destroyed. So Kitase straight says it, that everyone died at the end of FF7, that Holy's judgment did drop the axe on humanity, and this was even backed up by Hironobu Sakaguchi, so the Gooch himself, the father of Final Fantasy, in a Japanese mag to say that he thought the ending, according to his script, that Holy had wiped out humanity, which may partly explain why Aerith said she'll be coming back. Whoa. Wow, so all of humanity died. And when I saw this and I thought, no, it couldn't, and I went back and I watched everything, I was like, no way, I understood this game a whole different to that. Actually, when I've gone back and watched it all through, and I will be replaying the game, people keep asking, before the remake, I will replay the original with all of this in mind, because as I've gone back and revisited scenes, it is actually making a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense why they cut it just after that flash, how we saw no resolution of the planet being saved, how Aerith's face appeared, all the stuff that Bugenhagen said, the way that Red is there standing over what looks like a humanless planet. And this is just a morsel of the stuff, because I don't want to turn this into an hour-long video. Go back and watch some scene, guys, and you'll see maybe this really was in their mind, and perhaps when Square Enix are reconsidering now how to do this remake, There's some elements they might make more obvious, less obvious, because I definitely do think that they were not scared of killing these characters at all. Like, originally they really were not. They said that they wanted death and loss. And no, the whole game ties into a deeper philosophy of man's connection with the planet, of afterlife themes, of the beauty of serving a cause greater than yourself. You know, breaking down that barrier of, you know, humans always thinking they're the most superior beings, they're the highest form of consciousness, therefore they have the right to use and take, and that even with the idea of coming back to life, which in my last video I said that they wanted to challenge. Whenever we think about coming back to life, we always have this really nice fairy tale idea that we'd come back as other humans, but something that I kind of strongly believe in is that energy is never destroyed, it's simply transferred. And would it really be so bad if our energies disperse into the planet and it becomes one of everything? Part of it may be a tree, maybe a rock, it may be part of a river, it may be a flower, maybe another animal, it may be all of those things. I think when Bugenhagen explained how the life stream works, you know, how after a creature dies, it dissolves and then it becomes a part of the whole again. I think that if they were bold enough to go with this everyone dies vein, even if they keep it ambiguous or not, that they could really tap into the beauty that doesn't necessarily have to be this really morbid, sad, oh my god, everyone died, it's horrible, I hate it ending, my favorite characters. Maybe they could bring that kind of beauty, that kind of comfort with, why are we so scared at the notion of dying? Why do we feel so much pain? Why do we treat it with so much sorrow rather than celebration? And those are the kind of deep themes that they really could go into. And I think that they originally were going to, because at the very, very original concept, Katase said that he wanted every character out of the 3 chosen to raid Midgar to be killed off in an airship crash. So after the parachute scene, I'm so glad that they didn't make this, because honestly, based on the 3 I chose, I mean, that would have been horrible. It would have made replaying FF7 horrible, because yeah, everyone bar the 3 we picked would have died in the parachute scene. So there we go, guys. Everyone dies in FF7 Theory. I'm going forward for the remake. And no, quickly even finishing off, even the way that Sephiroth said that he wanted to ascend to godhood, it was that when Holy came to try to fight Meteor, that he was gonna stand in the center of this collision, and that all of humanity would be absorbed into him. So he would take all the souls of humanity himself. Now when we see this crash come down and we actually see Aerith at the end, again, that could be another hint that it was Aerith who was there, who essentially took all of humanity in, like the great mother and great waifu of the planet that she is. Perhaps that's what they were getting at. But either way, guys, I really want to know what you guys think. How would that sit with you if they actually went bold enough to kind of bring back what their original thinking was? I'm really curious which directions Katase will go. Do you think it will end in a different way? What did you think about between these 2 Materia? And I'm just looking at this board. This conversation board on GameSpot.com, because it's talking about the Nanaki ending a lot, and I'm just seeing questions of, will Red 13 be a waste if it's truly only Midgar? I can't wait to see what Red 13 looks like. I swear if they don't get Red 13's main for physics right, I'm going to scream. And will Red 13 have genitals? Oh, Final Fantasy fans. But thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it if you comment, liked, and subscribed. Especially that subscribe. I'm getting close to that 100k subscriber mark. It's a meaningless milestone of validation from YouTube, but I like steel cases, I like shiny things, silver play button. I'd rub my face on it with joy, and you can help give me some of that joy. So I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Until the next video, guys. Come out!